Greetings, peace be with you. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 7 semen retention lessons from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. If you don't know who Marcus Aurelius is, then have you been living under a rock? Because he has been a huge influence not only on my life, but on the lives of perhaps a lot of people that you have been influenced by as well, right? Ryan Holiday is just one example of someone who has been really researching the work of Stoicism and getting to the core of how we can actually live our authentic path and purpose in our lives. How can we show up as the most capable versions of ourselves, right? Because semen retention is a practice towards experiencing the higher self, right? Experiencing who we are capable of being, experiencing our potential rather than letting it loose through our genitals, right? So, the first lesson really to understand over here is that of the seed, or the seeds rather, of thought, okay? So in the Hindu philosophy, they say that the seeds of karma are planted in the mind, right? There's like a seed, it falls in between the sidewalk, right? There's some space in between the sidewalk, there's some dirt over there, the seed falls over there. And no one notices at first, year 1, year 2, but eventually that seed germinates into a full-blown oak tree, which literally disrupts the whole sidewalk on the side, right? And that's the same thing with thought, because the seeds of thought are planted in your mind, and you don't even know where you picked them up from. Maybe it's from your parents, maybe it's from your schooling, maybe it's from your influences around you. And because the temple of your mind was not guarded against these seeds, eventually they germinated, eventually they grew, and eventually they led you down the path of busting your nuts out, right? I don't know where you are on this journey of semen retention, whether you're just getting started, whether you're still looking for that motivation to stay consistent, whether you relapsed recently, right? There's a lot of different paths. I mean, the path is the same at the end of the day, but there's different checkpoints on that path towards experiencing who you are, and I suppose that path never really ends, right? So what does our man Marcus Aurelius have to say about this, right? So I'm going to quote directly from the book over here. So he says, and I quote, "Your ability to control your thoughts, treat it with respect. It's all that protects your mind from false perceptions, false to your nature and that of all rational beings," right? A thought experiment that I'd like to run a lot is like, if I took all of my thoughts as a thought experiment to check if all of my thoughts in my mind, right? If I were to sit down and take all of the thoughts in my mind, put them on a hard drive and scroll through them on my laptop, how many of those thoughts actually originated from me, and how many of those thoughts did I pick up from external stimuli, right? Because when the thoughts are not controlled, I think that is really the biggest problem that I faced for a long time, is that of not thinking for myself, of thinking that I need some external validation to do what I'm supposed to do, to think that I need instruction. And this is not a coincidence, because since childhood we are indoctrinated into the education system, where we have this teacher who represents the state, who tells us to only speak when we're spoken to raise our hand before going to the toilet, to not talk to people, right? So we're indoctrinated into the system of receiving instructions. And therefore our mind, the temple of our mind, remains open to external influences, because as children we've been conditioned to not think for ourselves, right? We go through school, we're like, yo, this is what you need to learn. Why? No one tells you that. You're just going to learn this, and the better you are at following instructions, the better you will be at rising up in the status quo that's been already established, right? But you didn't come here to live up to the status quo. You came here to shatter the status quo, to create your own life, right? So what this has to do with semen retention at the end of the day is understanding that, anytime there is this thought impulse that's like, okay, I need to bust a nut, okay, I need to go and relieve myself, I need to go let go of my stress, or I need to go, I need to do this, like whatever rationalization your mind comes up with, realize that that is not your true self that is coming up with that, right? The first step is really getting awareness on your thoughts, realizing that you are not your mind. And once you can do that, you can begin to actually assess, are these thoughts serving me or not? And when you can realize that the thought that comes into your head that tells you that you need to bust a nut, that you need to relieve the stress, that you need to ejaculate, that thought, assess it objectively rather than just get pulled by it in that direction, right? And then the more you can assess it and observe it, the more you can choose your most empowered response rather than react based on your conditioning, right? Because that is what separates your compulsiveness from consciousness, right? The thoughts, are they your own or are they not, right? And more often than not, there are so many thoughts that are not our own. And the more we can develop the practice of observing them, right? Of knowing, okay, is this thought serving me right now or not? The more we can continue to make our decisions in alignment with that as well, right? Now, the second key semen retention lesson from Marcus Aurelius is that of distraction or traction, right? There's only two things that you can engage your attention in. First thing is distraction, right? And that really is anything that doesn't move you towards your goals. If you have determined that something is important for you, if you have determined that I need to get this project done, if you've determined that you need to go to the gym, if you've determined that I need to eat this certain amount of meals, right? Or you've determined what actions you need to get done in order to get you to where you want to go. And anything that is not that action, anything that is not getting you towards your goals is a distraction. Okay, traction is when you're on the track, you're single pointed, you're focused towards what your goals are, and distraction is anything that doesn't move you towards your goals. Okay, so I'm just going to read out a quote from Marcus Aurelius again over here. He said that people try to get away from it all, to the country, to the beach, to the mountains. You always wish that you could too, which is idiotic. You can get away from it anytime you like by going within. Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul, right? So there's so much stimuli out there, there's so much stuff vying for our attention, and there's so much distraction, really, right? And as Robin Sharma says, your addiction to distraction is the death of your creative production. And we've all been there, scrolling mindlessly, looking for that next dopamine spike, right? Thinking that I need to go on vacation, right? I need to go to the mountain. But Marcus Aurelius is saying over here that you can go within your own soul, right? That stillness, that quiet, that presence, that calm, that peace, right? That is within your own heart, that is within you. And anytime that I think that I have a temptation, I have an impulse to go and binge on some food, anytime like go smoke some weed or go bust a nut, like I haven't had that for a long time. I'm going to be sharing my journey with you in future videos as well. But it's about understanding that everything you need is within you. There is no place of calm, cool, collected peace that is as peaceful as your own heart, as your own soul, right? So anytime you feel the urge to do something that is not serving you, that is the moment where you can use that as an opportunity to get still, right? Just sit in your place of silence and contemplate the awareness on your breath and reach your normal breathing pattern. And you realize that there is no place as peaceful as your own soul, right? Because at the end of the day, like the more we can practice silence, the more we can grow the distance between stimulus and response, right? There's a stimulus, okay, I feel a certain way. I feel like I have a hard on right now. I feel like I need to bust a nut. But then when you get into your place of silence, you're like, why do I feel that way? And you begin to trace that feeling all the way down. Like, where's the root of this? Why do I feel this compulsive temptation to escape my reality right now, right? And then, okay, I've dealt with it. What is the most important thing for me to do right here, right now, that's going to move me towards my goals, right? Distraction, traction. We are either on the track towards our goals or we are not on the track towards our goals, right? There's no two ways about it. Of course, you can rest, you can rejuvenate, you can recover, you can go and entertain yourself. But really, do it with awareness, do it with consciousness rather than being pulled by a stimulus that is outside of your awareness, okay? Now, the third key lesson on semen retention over here is that of self-worth, right? As Marcus Aurelius says over here, our own worth is measured by what we devote our energy to, okay? As you sow, so shall you reap, okay? No matter what your situation is, no matter where you are, no matter where you've been, everything is of your own doing, of your own thinking, right? Your life is a result of you. And okay, maybe it's not 100% true. You didn't choose your parents, you didn't choose the country you were born in, you didn't choose the school that you went to. Maybe on a higher level you did, but let's just say you didn't, right? At the end of the day, like you can believe something even though it's not 100% true, right? You can believe something because it empowers you. For example, you are responsible for every single thing in your life, right? Even though that's not entirely true. Everything is your fault. Maybe it's not, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you embody the belief that everything is my fault, then that is when you can realize that everything is in my power to change, right? You see that? Because the more that you become a victim, the more that you blame, complain, or make excuses, the more that you give your power away. The more that you take responsibility for everything, the more you can actually go and change anything. And that is really what builds your self-worth, right? Because where you put your energy, right? If you're putting your energy towards busting nuts, if you're putting your energy towards watching pixels on a screen which are messing with your brain chemistry, then that will be your worth, right? What you put your energy towards, energy is the only thing that you have. Where are you putting it, right? Are you putting it, again, towards traction, towards things that move you towards your goals, towards improvement, towards growth, towards becoming more? Or is it towards serving an ulterior agenda that's been conditioned into your mind, right? Because where you put your energy is what you get back, right? And more often than not, when we do things that don't serve us, it's because we have been hacked by external stimuli. And that's why it comes back to finding that center, right? Creating that stillness, creating that space to observe the mind and make it go where we want to go, right? So that brings us to the fourth semen retention lesson from Marcus Aurelius, and that is on self-standards, right? What do I mean by this? So, as Marcus Aurelius says over here, resolve to live up to your own expectations, right? Because at the end of the day, this is not a value judgment. This is not based on your morality. You do what you want, right? I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to offer you my perspective as I deepen my own perspective around these ideas by sharing them with you, right? And at the end of the day, just live up to your own expectations. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how you feel about yourself when you are by yourself. And this is why, again, it becomes so difficult for people to just sit in silence, to observe their own breath, to spend time with themselves. They can't. There's too much stuff going on. There's too much antsy. I don't like being idle. I can't sit with myself. Why? Because there's so much junk in here that you've been avoiding for so long that you just can't do it, right? But the more you sit with it, the more you digest it, then you can actually metabolize it, right? I compare meditation sometimes to taking a shit. It's like you're taking all the shit that doesn't serve you and getting enough, like defragmenting the hard drive of your mind, right? And at the end of the day, like I said, it comes down to your own standards. What standards do you set for yourself? If you want to fap every single day, do it. Like, do it, but just go all out. But if you're fapping every single day and you are having this image, you're like, I don't want to do it, but you still do it, that is when you are not living up to your own expectations, right? At the end of the day, like, the most joy you can get is when you say you're going to do something and then you do it, right? You build that credibility with yourself. You build that respect for yourself because you know that your words, your thoughts, and your behaviors are in alignment. And when they are not, that causes a disharmony, right? So at the end of the day, do whatever it is that you want, but just get clear on what it is that you want, right? That's step number one. And then get clear on what you have to do to get it. And then make a commitment to do it. And then just do it. And then that's where you actually build up that credibility. You build that momentum, and continuously taking that action every single day eventually get you to the point where you can really become the expression of your ideal, right? So resolve to live up to your own expectations. Say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say, right? And then you will feel good about yourself because you have credibility with yourself at the end of the day. Okay, so it's not about my standards, it's not about anyone else's standards, it's not about you comparing yourself to anyone else, because I tend to do that a lot, right? It's a toxic emotion, like comparing, because it's like Jay Shetty, who I've been, following for a while, he says, at my own time, in my own pace, right? At my own pace, in my own time. Just repeating that, at my own pace, in my own time, at my own pace, in my own time. Like, everything is happening how it's supposed to, but also it is in your power to adjust, right? To choose which direction you want to head in, all right? Just set the standard and live up to it. That's it. Maybe if you have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, just make it a standard to get that little win. I'm going to wake up at 9 a.m. every single day. Whatever that little win is, get it, and that's what you build on top of, okay? Now, the fifth key semen retention lesson over here for Marcus Aurelius is that of the source of joy. And I quote, "Joy for humans lies in human actions. Human actions include kindness to others, contempt for the senses, the interrogation of appearances, observation of nature and of events in nature." Right? And a key emphasis over here on the contempt for the senses. All right? They are below the mind. And the reason that I personally engaged in habits that were destructive to me, that I knew were destructive to me, but I still did them again and again and again, I was caught in that negative cycle for a while, is because my senses were driving my decisions, right? What does that mean? That means that I was driven towards pleasure and away from pain, right? I would bust nuts to pixels on a screen because it would give me that instant dopamine spike. It would give me that cheap thrill. But in the long term, it would damage my well-being, right? And that is understanding that the senses are something that you have, and they can either be serving you or they can be hindering you on your path, right? They can be distracting you, because the senses are the mammalian part of our brain, right? It's driven through emotion, it's driven through that, it's like Pavlov's dogs, right? Ringing the bell, like chasing that, it's like looking for that next spike of dopamine on the phone. But again, it comes back to that place of stillness, of realizing that you are not your mind, you are not your body, you are not your emotions. These are all experiences that you're having, and that you have a choice to show up how you want, right? You have the power, not the distractions around you, not the stuff vying for your attention. It's you. Power is in your hands. It's only a matter of whether you actually take responsibility of reclaiming it or continuing it to give away to sources outside of you. Okay? And he says that, it's just like at the end of the day, it's like interrogation of appearances. Nothing is ever how it seems, right? Go deeper, right? Whenever things are going well, go deeper. Like you might have been in a semen retention journey for a while, go deeper. It's not just about nofap, go deeper, always, right? A bunch of other videos on this channel as well. I'll link out to them below, but always understand that the senses are your enemy when it comes to the path of self-realization, right? That is what Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita as well. He's like, the senses are a hindrance on your path. They move towards pleasure, away from pain, right? And that's just their primary software program. But the more we can elevate beyond the mammalian part of our brain to the neocortex, rational and thinking part of our brain, and do what we know serves us, the more we will continue to move in the right direction, okay? And that brings us to the 6th semen retention lesson from Marcus Aurelius on building a manly character, okay? And as a side note, manly does not mean, oh, I'm buff and bully people and aggressive, right? The word virtue means manliness in Latin, okay? Virtus is what means to be a manly character, right? So to live with virtue is to be manly at the end of the day. So a woman can be manly as well if she's living with the virtue, with the values, like having an idea of what my values are and living in alignment with them, right? And as Marcus Aurelius says over here, characteristics of the rational soul, right? What are they? Self-perception, self-examination, and the power to make of itself whatever it wants, right? That's a major key over here. Make of yourself whoever you want. What is your ideal? You are here to create that image, right? Because at the end of the day, semen is the source of your creative energy. The same drive that makes us procreate, that makes us drives us to procreate, is the drive between two higher levels of thought, to creativity. And you are either a victim that blames external circumstances, that makes excuses, that complains, that has a story about why you aren't where you are, right? And this is all the conditioning. It's not anything to a moral judgment on you. This is the conditioning that we've been indoctrinated to since the education system, the food system, the big pharma system. They all indoctrinate us into the victim mentality. But it is in your hands to take back your power as the creator, right? And that is really the number one benefit of semen retention, is that it expands your creativity, right? You can think more than you are. You can think more than you feel. You can do more than you currently think you are capable of, because you have that creativity to express yourself in ways that you never have. And once you do that, it changes your perception of who you are, right? And once you realize that you are the creator, that only comes after you actually preserve your creative energy, can channel it towards higher levels of thought, right? Because otherwise you're stuck in the cycle, in the same cycle, going through the motions, right? But the more you can elevate that thought, I can channel that sexual energy towards your head and expand your awareness, the more you realize, okay, I can create myself however I want. It's just a matter of me elevating my thought, elevating my behavior, and at the end of the day, the behavior leads me to a new emotion that I've never felt before. That feeds back into the thought. It becomes a positive feedback loop into you actually creating yourself in your ideal vision, right? That's a positive feedback loop. The negative feedback loop is like, I'm lazy. Oh, I'm gonna watch TV. Oh, I watch TV. That must mean I'm lazy. I feel even more lazy. And that just becomes a negative feedback loop, right? So what feedback loop are you giving your energy to right now? Okay? And that brings us to the 7th and final semen retention lesson over here from Marcus Aurelius. And that is on compulsive or creative, right? So again, this is a focus on the impulses, on the senses, on our temptations. And I'm going to quote Marcus Aurelius directly right now. And he says that we need to pay attention to our impulses, making sure they don't go unmoderated, that they benefit others, that they're worthy of us, right? So our impulses are below us. That's what he says, right? They are our tool, right? The more we are compulsive, the more we are driven through this need to get pleasure, this need to get that dopamine fix, this need to get the quick fix of, the feel-good hormones, which damages in the long term, the more we are distracted from our authentic path and purpose in our life, right? It comes down to, at the end of the day, are our senses working for us or against us, right? Are they moving us towards our goals or not? And at the end of the day, if they're not, we need to moderate them. We need to discipline ourselves. We need to get back on the path towards what we are here to do. Okay? So if you haven't checked out Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, I highly recommend that you check it out. It is one of the most influential books on my journey. I come back to it again and again and again, made a bunch of videos on it, come back to my notes every time I look at it. I'm like, so that's just like, I never understood it from that perspective before, right? Because the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you improve, you come back to the same books that resonated with you, you will have a completely different perspective on those same ideas once you come back to them, okay? So I hope that you got value from this video. Leave a comment below letting me know your #1 takeaway, and click the like button if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Much love to you. Take care.